Hey class, this is Zach, and this is the Week 9 Current Events presentation. This week we are talking about concept generation for our products, and I kind of wanted to discuss a little more about involving customers in this process. During our class, we've talked a little bit about some of the advantages and the disadvantages of involving customers at different points during the design process. Some of the advantages of including the customers, obviously they are the ones who are going to be using the product in the environment, and they are the ones who currently are operating in an environment that we feel there is a need. So they know the needs probably better than anybody and better than anyone would on the design team. Some of the disadvantages, however, are that the involving of the customers can often bog down the process. It kind of slows things down. You can get really overwhelmed with a lot of information coming at you. They also tend to have a lot of different ideas that are what they want, but it's not something that's really feasible for the design team. So it can cause a lot of issues as well as bringing some advantages. So there's definitely a balance there for where it's advantageous to have them involved, but then there's a certain point, where it's going to drag your team down and end up negatively affecting you. So I looked for an article on this, and I found an article written by Lance Betancourt for the American Marketing Association. It was on their webpage. And the article was called Best Practice or Bandwagon, Involving Customers in New Product Development. And what the article was talking about is this new wave of, based on some of the successes of companies like Starbucks and Lego, who heavily involved customers throughout every stage of the design process and had great success doing so. It's kind of becoming more of a standard practice to do this in industry. And this article is kind of questioning whether that's actually the case. And what it turns out, a couple professors from the University of Illinois actually did a study on about 39 different companies independently, and found that it's not always the case that involving customers all the way throughout the design process is beneficial. What they did find was that usually involving the customers in the idea generation phase very early on, when you're just determining what the need is for, and then in the prototyping, when you've already generated a concept and kind of put together, a representation of what the final product might look like, so they can use it, interact with it, and tell you, this is good, or there's changes that need to be made here. Those two particular times during the design process, they saw the biggest correlation to product success. And the three areas in which they kind of correlated to were the innovativeness of the product, the speed to market, and the overall financial performance of this product. So the companies that involved the customers throughout the design process actually really struggled with the speed to market in almost a negative way. And obviously, if you're too slow to market, you're going to start having a financial effect on the financial performance of your product is going to suffer, because it should have been in the market months ago, and you're still here trying to nail down what these customers are saying to make your product perfect. When you really probably should have been in the market a long time ago and could be having success and being profitable. So basically, the summary of this article is that it's not always pertinent to involve the customers throughout the design process. They actually list 5 or 6 questions toward the end of the article, and basically what the questions are asking are, how much uncertainty is there in the technology that you're developing, and how willing is your design team to listen to customer input. And if you can say yes to all those questions, then it's better for you probably to include customers throughout the design process. It's going to have more benefits for you than disadvantages. If you're saying no to a lot of these questions, then you might want to reconsider whether you're going to include the customer throughout the process, and maybe stick to more traditional, including them in the initial needs surveys, and then including them when you get to your prototypes. So that's pretty much it for the article. The question I have for you guys is, for your team's project, what would your thoughts be on involving the customers in the entire process? Or do you think your product is more suited for having the customers involved in the idea generation, and then maybe toward the end when the prototypes are ready? Interested to see what you guys have to say, and thanks for taking a listen.